Join us in a festival that promises to be extraordinary, because Bali is extraordinary.
Thank you for joining us for today's book launch, Kink, by Ray Shabir. The moderator for this session is Laxmi Denif. During the book launch, please keep your mobile phones on silent and do not use flash photography. For the most up-to-date program information, please refer to the program changes page on ubudwritersfestival.com. To enter our venues, please install the Peduli Lindungi application and bring your first vaccination card. Please follow our health protocol throughout the event by wearing your mask at all times, washing your hands regularly, and physically distancing from the crowd. Please join the conversation on social media. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at UWRF, and always use the hashtag UWRF21. Thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival 2021. This year, the festival returns with the theme Mulat Sarira, self-reflection, which is drawn from a Balinese Hindu philosophy. From October 8th to 17th of October, we will explore the meaning of self-reflection, cultural introspection, and human rights, examining who we are, what unites us, and divides us, and what drives our actions. So, I'm so hungry, I could eat the whole world. This first line from the book gave me such an excitement to go and dive into Ray Shabir's poetries. So let me introduce myself. The first time the festival started, I was only 7, and I never thought I would be on the Ubud Writers Festival stage. So I'm very happy to be here, especially to launch the book of Ray Shabir,
Thank you.
a writer, an artist, born and raised in Jakarta. Ray seeks to create visual landscape that expresses his reality beneath its soft reverie. I first met Ray on Instagram because I saw your work through a mutual friend. And then we ended up working together, and now we're here.
Yeah, now we're here.
Yeah, so let's start. Do you want to read us something from your book?
Sure. But first, I would just like to thank you, Bu Janet, and everyone from the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival for having me here.
Yes.
It's quite a wild ride.
Yes, thank you everyone who's watching at home and everyone here. Yeah.
So the first poetry of the book is called Apocalypso, and here it goes. I'm so hungry I could eat the whole world, starve me and watch how I chew on my soul. When I want, they never let me. When I need, they never respect me. In fear of not knowing how to be cherished, I pray to a God that wants me punished. In fear of the wrong destiny catching up to me, they said God has made me an enemy. They say to be hungry is to be beautiful, but how did my appetite become so political? How can I learn to love life when nothing ever rhymes? How can I be here for a good, if not a long time? I'm so hungry I could eat the whole world after putting death into a tight chokehold. When our bodies touch, you'll remember the heat. I exist way too much, so you can die just a bit. Apocalypso, apocalypso, apocalypso. I'll scream your name when the rain is ours. So yeah,
Beautiful.
that was the first one. Thank you.
Especially hearing you read it out loud. So when was the first time that you encountered poetry, and did you write a poem straight away after that encounter?
Well, I don't know if it counts as poetry, but I would love just listening to music, and then, you know, being 14, 15, everything seems to be like, this is so deep. And then I would just try to imitate in the way they wrote it, but made it my version.
Okay.
But then it would have a copy of the same thing, because I was copying a songwriting structure. So I would have the verse, and I would repeat that as I was like writing it, as if it was a chorus too.
Okay.
So yeah, and then I grew up, my counselor, guidance counselor in school told me to read Pablo Neruda, so I was reading him. He was actually, I think, one of the first poet I've ever read, and then like really dive into. And then yeah, I think that propels me into start writing poetry.
Okay.
Yeah.
The music part makes so much sense now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and also, by the way, I visited Pablo Neruda's house.
Oh
in
wow,
Chile.
how was that like?
Amazing. Yeah. So this year's theme is Mulat Sarira, or self-reflection. Tell us what you think about self-reflection, and have you done a lot of it with writing, or has writing helped you with self-reflection?
I think after a time like last year, we're kind of just forced into being stuck at home and do some self-reflecting. But in terms of writing, I always kind of do it for whatever projects or books that I was doing. Like the first one was clearly about the anxieties and entering core life crisis, so I put that out. And when I got the chance to write that book, the pressure wasn't necessarily can I write or not, but it's just about what should I write. And that ended up being what it's about, because that's also the anxieties I was feeling in real life. And then with this one, it also comes in I try to force an essay book for my second one, because I thought people really enjoyed the essays from the first one. But that wasn't, I think, what I needed at the time, and I did a little bit self-reflecting and just ended up writing Kink. Yeah, and writing does help a lot, because what's funny is you realize one thing before you write it, and then you did, and then you open up a box, and then after it's done, it opened up another box. So I think even the book's meanings for me changes throughout time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And do you think it would be different if you sort of didn't self-reflect through writing?
Yes, but I wouldn't see it any other way.
Yeah.
Because that's how I do my self-reflection. Even when I don't always understand what I'm saying or why I'm writing this. But yeah, it's definitely would be different. It would be boring, I think.
I mean, also for me, I don't see another way to self-reflect than just sitting myself down and writing about things. Yeah. And I guess I want to ask you the obvious question, like, what inspired you to write this book? Like, what made you, like, you have to write this?
It's funny, because one of my friends was releasing her 7th book, and I was like,
7?
Oh wow, what's gonna be my second one? And then the title just came to me. I remember I wrote a poetry about porn that I wrote in college, and then I was, oh wait, and then I hear Kink in my head, and let's just build something out of that. So it was kind of decided, but then as I progressed writing it, it changes every time. I wasn't always sure the direction that I was going with Kink. With Public Feelings, I made literally an Excel spreadsheet of this. It's 20 chapters about 20 different anxieties. So there's marriage, breaking up, moving apartments, finding a job, loneliness, and all these things that we are afraid of or thinking about during our core life crisis. But then with this one, I just kind of threw that Excel and just write whatever makes sense to me at the time. And yeah, so this is a product of that.
Yeah, I guess that sounds similar to the pandemic. Everyone had before the pandemic, like a structure to their lives, and then they just have to like throw it out and then go with the flow.
Yeah, go with the flow, exactly.
Yeah. So why is it so important to you, for you to express your emotions and eventually share it with the world?
It was, I did a bit of storytelling that you were in, and I was telling how sometimes with the problems in life, and you can't always take care of your own story, so you ended up releasing it and then eventually putting it out for people to make sense of it however they may. And and that's when I released that first book, I would get messages from people just telling stories about their life, like what were they feeling, or and not necessarily about the book too, like my grandfather was sick, or just like chatting and talking, and we ended up talking, and oh right, this is probably what, because stories by the end of the day unites us, and I guess that's why I write. I don't know if it's a cry for help. I don't know if it's trying to help someone else, but it's always this big release that I was yearning before I made every book. So yeah.
But I also like what you said the other day about validating our stories by sharing your own.
Yeah. Because I don't want people to just focus on my journey or my pain or whatever things that are happening in my life, but also kind of validate their own stories and see if I can make a book out of it. If I can make something out of it, then you can too. It doesn't necessarily have to be a book, but maybe just powering through.
I mean, at the end, it's easier to live life when you share your pain with others, or you're sharing, you know, happiness, going through life together with someone. But yeah, speaking of pain, your first book is about anxiety, and the second one is about pain and desire as well. Do you want to share something about dealing with pain?
Dealing with it. Well, I write. That's one. But then I realized, like, me putting books out doesn't mean that I'm solving it, that there are works that goes into healing and making a rise out of your pain, and yeah, it's that was the shock for me, because I thought if I had write it out, these are my anxieties or my issues or my stories in life, so I write it out and then I'll manifest them into life, and because I made them, I can destroy them. Because if I solved it in the book, I can solve it in real life, but that's not the case. And the actual work sometimes has nothing to do with books, poetries, or music, or whatever thing you're making, and that's the thing that I had to really learn and lean into.
Yeah, even if you solve one problem, life always has problems,
Yeah.
unsolvable problems, and
Yeah.
I guess you'll never run out of things to write about.
Fair.
So, the next questions. What's different about this book to your first? And tell us the differences of your experience writing your first book while traveling in New York, and your second book while typing away like Carrie Bradshaw in your bedroom.
Well, the first book was parts of it were done partially when I was in New York. The book was set in New York, and this was done partially in my bedroom. And the difference is I was going out. Obviously, I was going out for the first one, and then this one with Kink, I was going in. So I had to make sense of, why am I putting this out? Like, am I being honest with what I'm writing? Because I can always tell, and my friends could always tell if I'm lying or if I'm not being clear on whatever it is that I was writing. And the difference also technically is I made a deliberate decision putting a structure with public feelings, even though it's seemingly chaotic. But then with Kink, I threw that out the window and just write and just hash out, and then did a little bit of editing,
Okay. Yeah, and in terms of like motivating yourself or scheduling yourself to write, what were the differences?
I don't do that. Like,
tell us about how you work, like the process. And
if there's a funny thing or something that I discovered in my life, I would like put it down in my notes, but then I would just make the time to sit down and actually hash it out. But I don't particularly have a routine. I know some writers like wake up really early and then write, and edit their previous day's work and then write a new one. Yeah, but I don't do that. I just write, and it's poetry, so sometimes I write it on my phone.
Okay.
Sometimes I wake up at 3 a.m. and just type. Okay. Some of the poetries here are done in like 2 minutes. So and then I didn't edit it aside from grammar. So yeah, I don't really have a structure. So scheduling was a nightmare basically. But once I felt the book was complete, I can schedule like the editing and the layouting and everything. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So this is a question that I want to know. I'm curious about. How do you want to be seen as a writer?
I never thought of that. An honest one? Maybe an honest one? Yeah, an honest one.
An open book.
An open book.
So you wrote in your new book, quote, "I write not of important things, but of beautiful things." I want to know what to you is important and what is beautiful.
Well, what's important? Well, I guess that's me kind of being tongue-in-cheeky a little. I was being cheeky when I wrote it, because I feel like with the response of the first book, people either take it way too seriously or not seriously enough. So I was just, oh, I'll do me. So in the end, I wrote something that I think is beautiful and also important to me. So that's kind of like a lol sticker at the the front of the book. But what's important and what's beautiful? Well, going back to being Carrie Bradshaw during the pandemic, I guess that's also kind of funny to me when I'm writing about heartbreaks or being in pain, but then the world is actually sick. The world is actually in pain, and there are bigger things. And I don't feel as a person I lack self-awareness, but that's also raises the question of, am I allowed to validate my own pain? And the answer is always yes. It doesn't really matter that this happened to you or not happened to you. It is yours, you know? And you can be sad while the world is sad, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, to me, beauty is important. Yeah, especially like coming from a design background.
Yeah.
And it brings so much happiness. And maybe now from our situation with the COVID, like having so much sadness that we need beauty and we need entertainment and art. Yeah, and that's also what I love about poetry, is that I can paint my own picture and have my own interpretations and changing it based on how I feel, or sometimes, as I told you about that one poem that we're gonna read soon, how the meaning just changed after I read the notes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, what do you want to project to your readers? How do you want your readers to feel? Like, have you thought about this?
That's the thing. When I write for myself, so I always forgot that other people are gonna read this, and then it's always because I've said my piece, right? I've typed the words, I printed the books, I've put it on sale. So whatever people's take on it, it's always interesting to me. So I always ask them, which one's your favorite piece, or why do you like this one? Because my favorites are never people's favorites, which is amazing. I get to have like a say a little bit. Especially with the first book, Public Feelings, it was about different anxieties in different chapters, right? So whenever people have a favorite, it always kind of tells where they're at in their life instead of me. So it's like, oh, you like this one because you're probably feeling anxious about this particular issue. So I don't really, once I put it out, I already know that it's not necessarily mine anymore. So I already have that letting go, like bloodletting before I put it out. And then I got really sad for a day, and then I just jump back in again the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like the conversations that you have with your readers are very interesting. And the one you told me about the other day where someone sort of like analyzed your whole life.
So somebody I think took psychology, and he made this essay on a blog about quarter life crisis and kind of dissecting me as he was dissecting the book. And I was like it was like a wow moment, because as I was reading it, I was agreeing with him, and then I was like, I think I was here. And then he wrote that exact thing that I thought. I was like, whoa. So yeah, it's really funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just mind-blowing also, like the conversations that you make. That I also feel like sometimes reading, I'm making conversations with the writer, because when I read, I have my own memory. So it's like, I feel like it's, when we're talking, you're talking about one memory, and then I'm talking, like it's an exchange.
It is an exchange.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about Milk, one of the poems in your book.
Mhm.
I found it interesting because I read it, and the meaning changed after reading the notes. How it was.
Can we read it and then I read the notes so people?
Okay, let's
Okay.
read it and
Okay.
see what people think, and I will read the notes.
So this one's called Milk. This was fun because I was house sitting for a friend, and she has this fridge with these like word magnets. So the first sentence were made out of those magnets. Okay, milk. Here goes. We swim in an enormous lake made out of milk, swimming until forget about our bodies, floating in an expanse that doesn't care about where we started or where will we end. But come here, tell me, where do you think we'll end up in? Well, don't ask me, because I was hurting long before I hurt. Should I be angry at the world? Should I be angry at myself? Should I avert my eyes when I recognize the screeching sound a car makes when it crashes into another, or when it crashes into water? Whom do you think we should blame when nothing seems to be more delicious than a youth that is broken, not even the milk that we swim in, no matter how sweet, no matter how condensed, no matter how well it hides the body stuck down there, unbothered and arrested in a white Holden Commodore that God left there without ever knowing why? Well, don't ask me, because I got no subtlety for grace. So that was the poetry, and should I read the notes?
Yes.
Okay. So I put like notes at the back that give context to some poetries. Milk refers to the tragic case of Robert Farquharson, where a father is convicted for driving his car into a dam, resulting in the deaths of his 3 children in rural Victoria, Australia. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with no minimum term and maintained his innocence. So yeah.
Yeah, that just, yeah, like, how did you tell us a story about this, how you made this poem? Like, how did you find this tragic story, and
Well, the story, I'm a
inspired
big
you?
fan of true crime, and I listen to true crime podcasts, and when I listened to that episode of Robert, it was really sad, because it was really sad if he did it on purpose, but it's also really sad if he didn't. You know, he lost 3 children. And then as I was house sitting my friend, we would go to trips to beaches and swim in swim in like lakes and swim in lakes, and I was just wondering, I see this like vision, or not vision, but like a visual of me and my friends sort of living this like young adult TV show kind of like life, like with a montage. But then things like Robert's case happen in the world. So where are we with that? So we're swimming, is this imagery of me and my friends swimming in a lake. But then I also kind of just paired up with that case, because it took me quite like a while to be not shaken up about that particular case. And yeah, I just see that me swimming with my friends, but then there's a car. What if there's a car down there with, you know, remnants of a family's life, you know?
Mhm.
That's and I literally wrote in the book, well, don't ask me, because I don't know either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows?
So that's one, yeah.
Yeah. And I also want to talk about ho. I didn't know how to say it, but
It's yeah, you're writing
I
it.
just
You're saying it right.
discovered. Yeah.
Well, it was a fun one that I thought was ho is this poetry. It's just so funny.
Do you want to read it?
Should I? Okay, let's see. Ho is got the table of contents. Sorry guys. I think it's around. Okay. Okay, here it goes. Commodify your mom, commodify your dad, commodify your blood, don't let them see you sad. Commodify your pride, commodify your babe, commodify your vibes, commodify your shame. Commodify your goals, commodify your dreams, commodify your friends, put them on the live stream. Commodify your heart, commodify your brain, commodify your body, commodify your pain. Commodify your pain, commodify your pain, commodify your pain, commodify your pain. Commodify your pain, make them pay for everything. Commodify your pain, make it rain, girl, make it rain. So yeah, that was just a funny one that I wrote for this scrapbook of essays that I was doing. It's about social media.
Okay.
And
I got that too.
Yeah, it's put them on the live stream, you know, like how
Yeah.
far are you letting up your personal life for public consumption, and how far, like, who are you selling for?
Mhm.
What are you selling for? And yeah, it's just kind of like I like when I always try to not write an iPhone or like a tweet, you know, or something technological that kind of puts a time context within the work. But then with this one, I kind of want to check in. This is what was done in 2020, so I was kind of want to check in the marks of people also being at home and being online and just staring at their screen and looking at lives, you know, because it was really surreal for me anyway.
Yeah.
Like, rest in peace, this person. Oh, a
Yeah.
new clothing collection, and then oh, there's this dinner party, and then oh, plasma needed. So that's kind of like how we lived for a few months, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I just kind of want to clock it in there.
Yeah, and everything happens so fast. So I think it's so important to have conversations
Mhm, mhm.
about social media, because we're living in this new like social media age that has been
Yeah.
boosted by the pandemic.
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
Everyone is just on it, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for me that was an interesting piece. And yeah, like
Yeah.
how does social media of course they influence you. I'm sure it influences everyone, but how does it influence you? Or can you tell us a little bit
Well,
about
it's a good, it's especially with Instagram, it's very visual, and a lot of, before I finished a poetry or when I was writing a poetry, like that visual key points would help in my head. So I guess it's a good reference point. But then sometimes I need to like shut down and just be quiet and let things fall where they may, where there's not too many noises. But I don't really, well, that thing, like, I don't think Kink will happen if I didn't see my friends posting my 7th book, you know, so there's that.
Okay.
And yeah, it helps, but you just know when to log off, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, like your work is not something that is like pop or mainstream. How did you manage to get it published by one of the biggest publishers in Indonesia?
Well, to me, I love a lot like pop culture references or just pop culture in general. So to me, it's kind of pop,
Okay.
even when it's not. It's like DIY pop. It's not glossed over.
Ooh, DIY pop.
And I think my publishers just kind of stuck with me at this point, and they like what I did with the first book, and I did an exhibition for the first book's launch, and when I send them the manuscript for the second one, they're just kind of like, okay, sure, you know. They're kind of let me do my own thing, which I really appreciate. Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, we need more people like you in Indonesia, young writers and poets. And
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of undiscovered talents out there.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, also, you're such an artist because you did almost all the work for the
Yeah, for the
design
book, yeah.
of the book. And it's such a beautiful book inside. Yeah, can we talk also about the cover and even the title?
Oh, well, the cover is, I've always wanted to have skin as the cover, and it's actually my palm, the palm of my hands. And if we had more budget, it would have had like another paper jacket, and then so it's inside, it's like a skin, and then it's inside like the pink illustration. So, and I don't know, I just see it just makes sense to me. And it kind of, I like when you're holding it, it's like you're holding my hand. I know it's kind of cheesy, but I just went for it. And also it's what's inside is inside of my skin. This is what's inside, like the poetries are inside of me. So also it makes sense in that sense, I guess. And yeah, I've always known the skin is just gonna be there. But what were you asking, Dundee? The other one? The design?
The title.
The title.
'Cause it's the title of one of the
One of the
poems.
poetries.
Poetry.
Well, Kink, I don't know, it just kind of came to me. I know it's a cop-out. It seems like it's magical, but oh, Kink, yeah, we're going with that. It just makes sense to me. And I work well with titles too, so a lot of the poetries from the book was because I wanted that to be the title. Like I have one called Jailbreaking Tesla, which is a song by Injury Reserve, and and I just want that as a title, and I kind of take it and make it my own. I put it in my notes, so I referenced it. But yeah.
Yeah, I really like the skin because I didn't know from seeing it on Instagram. I didn't know it was a picture of your
hand. Yeah.
And seeing it, I was like, oh, that's cool.
What did you think of it?
I love the skin.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that it'll be also cool. I like also the gloss, but it'll be also cool to have like a textured.
That's what I want.
Like cover.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Then you
what
feel like you feel the texture of the skin.
Yeah. That's the.
Okay.
If I ever release a deluxe version, that would be it. Honestly.
Oh my God, great minds think alike. Yeah. So, but I read that you had a really hard time designing your book, and you almost gave up until you found the work of Odilon Radon.
Yeah.
How did you find him, and can you share this?
I changed the design for the inside around 3 or 4 times, but I guess the visuals were too visual, and it kind of distract from the poetries. And I already did that with the first one. I kind of incorporate the visuals with the text, but then with this one, I kind of just I feel like I'm more confident as a poet and a writer at this one, so I kind of wanted that to shine more a little bit. But then I also know, I want visuals in it because I love it. And my brother told me to go to like the Met Museum's website, and apparently they have a lot of free copyright images. So I just browsed like thousands of artworks, and when I found his works, Radon's work, it was just this is Kink. This is this fantasy reality mermaid devil angel kind of vibe that I really want. And when I hit one of his image to the layout, I was just, oh yeah, we're going with this realm now. We're going art history again.
Thanks for the tip.
Yeah.
What about?
I'll give you the website.
Okay. What about the pink, the color?
Oh, the pink.
It's all over.
Oh yeah, in the book. Cause I turned it all pink to again let the text sort of like be in contrast from the visuals, and kind of just make a let the visuals take a back seat almost. But also, I just see pink from the very beginning when I made Kink. I see red when I made Public Feelings, and then I see pink and actually green, but I didn't end up using the green for Kink.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah, that's how I work sometimes. I just see these vivid colors for the first book, and then with this one I want pastels, softer color. We're going, I don't know where we're going with this, but that's the universe, I guess.
Do you think that came from like your design background?
Maybe, yeah.
And I want to ask also about what made you decide to structure the text in this particular layout, and was it influenced by studying architecture?
Well, the design background actually helped to find references, but as I was putting the words into the layouting program, because I'm the one who wrote it, so I know when to take. This is where you take your breath. This is where you break a bit, and this is the underline of what I kind of want to say. So I just let that. It was done very organically. I just read the poetry, and then when I put it in, oh, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here, and the visuals. Some of the pieces doesn't have any images because I think it was probably strong enough, or it doesn't really matter if it does or does not. But some I for sure play along with the pictures as well, like with the snake. Where's the snake? Oh, and there's the scissor too. So I just like, oh, there's the scissor, so I'm just gonna like work my way around this, you know. So it's that's how it kind of worked. You just put stuff into the computer. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the part that you enjoyed the most? What was the most fun to do? Was it the layout?
Oh, the writing.
The writing.
Sure. The writings for sure. Because that's the one who kind of surprises me most. It's the one where I had more surprises and more enjoyment in being surprised. Okay. Oh, this is where we're going, and you know, I've published my first book, so I already know what I am able to write, I guess, in a sense. But then with this set of poetries, there's stuff that I'm writing about the Middle Ages. I'm talking about Egypt now, and I wouldn't, yeah, right? Like that's been pleasantly walked down through for me anyway. But the layouting was like also fun. Like when it's not fun, you'll know it's not working out. That's how I work. Oh, this is not fun. Let's just forget about this.
Well, to me, the photo shoot looked fun. I
Oh, yeah,
love
that-
what you
that photo shoot
yeah,
was
I
really
love
fun.
what you did there. And
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit more about the photo shoot, like why you decided to do it? And
So I did a photo shoot to campaign this, I guess, the book, because I also model at the sides, on the sides, and I just see like a very domineering but evil figure, and a submissive but weak figure, and it's all kind of me. They're both me, so I just portray that. But the funny thing is, when it was done, I didn't see myself at all. It's because I was the one editing the photos again.
okay.
Yeah, because the photographer his family had COVID and he couldn't like finish it.
Oh.
And okay, let me just edit the photos myself, and I didn't recognize me, and I know it's my face, I know it's my eyes. I also like wore a wig that goes like down here, and it was, yeah. But my friend pointed out maybe that's the point. Maybe you don't want to see yourself. So, in
Wow.
these portrayals, so that's
That's an interest.
again.
Yeah, it's good to have point of views.
Yeah.
So you also had like a list of all these people that you thanked.
Oh yeah, like my friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
How important is it to have like a lot of opinions and a lot of guidance for you?
Well, I have like maybe only 2 friends that give me technical advice on the poetries, but the rest I just thank them for being there for me, I guess. And we kind of keep each other in check, especially during the pandemic. That was really really helpful.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, like the guidance part is, I really needed it at sometimes, because when you're writing a poetry, each poems kind of live in their own universe, and you have the advantage of knowing what actually happened, but then what makes sense to you may not be making sense to other people. So I have friends who, oh, you kind of have to, this is you trying to be edgy, scratch that, focus on this,
Okay.
elaborate on this, so, and then kind of just make the poetry, like build it into something that is more strong, I guess.
Yeah.
And that really, really helped me, yeah.
Yeah, this might be interesting for those who just started
Mhm.
writing, or maybe who wants to publish
Yeah.
their work. Like,
Yeah.
how do you find the
Well,
people,
I was
like
like,
the guidance and mentors and
well, one of my
connections?
friend worked in my publisher, so we met there, but we ended up really becoming really good friends. And after she left the job, she stayed friends with me.
Mhm.
And then another one is he just happens to be a journalist that worked in New York, and then he moved back to Jakarta, and he's now doing my next book, I guess. So I just literally found them. It's like
Okay.
through friends of friends, and that's the thing. Like I didn't really realize the importance of a good editor until I know editors are important, but then with I think with Kink, and then the next one is the one that really felt. My editor friends are the one that really felt like helpful, and really, oh, this is where we can go now, you know, make the stronger body of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe like while we're talking about this, how did you get your first book published?
It was through somebody that I knew. She was making she worked in the publisher, and she was looking for somebody to fill in a photo book, to make a photo book. But then, and she asked me to make a photo book, and I didn't kind of want to do that because I have photographer friends and they don't have books. They should have 10 books before I published my book, you know,
Mhm,
like a photo
yeah.
book. And I'm not a photographer per se. So, and I told her, but I actually write too, by the way. Here's some of my
Oh.
old writings. If it's chocok, we can like do this. And she was really down. And then she sent it to the publisher, and I work mostly with the publisher since. They're really happy with what I put out with the first one, yeah.
So it's all about like making the connections and
Yeah.
finding people who can support you.
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well. Yeah. I want to talk about this because I love it as well.
Mhm.
Can you tell us more about music and
Okay.
how it influenced your work? And I also realized that you even curated a playlist on Spotify for this book.
Yeah. I mean, I told you I discovered song lyrics and kind of try to mimic that structure when I started writing poetry or writing at all. And then music is just a really, really important part of my life. And some of its lyrics made its way to the book, and like Jailbreaking Tesla, the title I took from a song, and it's just it inspires me a lot. And I never shy away from like referencing an artist or referencing a line from a song, because it made sense for me and also for my own personal story. Oh, this happened and this song was playing, I don't know, just put it in there. But I always credit, that's very important to credit, and kind of just want to put an homage to them. And then the playlist is just something fun, because with the pandemic, I had to postpone my exhibition. I think I'm doing another exhibition for the book, and I just want to make something fun for people to enjoy at home, I guess, and kind of get into it's also world building, right? I made 3 playlists. I released one of them on Spotify and Apple Music that kind of, so if the book is a movie, this would be the soundtrack. So this would be like the universe, like building aspect of the book, I guess. Because that's how I see things. And my friend pointed out to me when I first started writing Kink, I kept saying to her, I can't see the universe, I can't see the universe. And I'm just like cracking at that door to kind of see what am I talking about, you know? And then I did, thankfully.
And, well, as you said, like you wanted to create this world, and you also mentioned that you're interested in making movies or films.
Oh.
Would you?
No, it's just, I probably would. I really am interested in script writing, because writing for movies or being in a movie is also like, it's a very collaborative effort. There's a lot of voices in the room, and that will be interesting to have that exchange of ideas, I guess. But yeah, as a joke, I always say to people, like, I didn't write these books to become a writer. I just have a story to tell, but I happen to have a laptop and a camera and my Photoshop skills. So I could make a book out of those. So if I have a bigger budget and have the background for it, maybe I'll make a movie, you know? So
well,
yeah.
That's an interesting thing also, that you sort of became a writer. Was it something that you wanted to do? Because you studied architecture. So was it like something that you've always loved doing but didn't want to become, and you just happened to find?
Until this book, I wasn't really sure of calling myself a writer, but now I for sure can call myself a poet. It's like calling yourself a baker instead of a chef. Do you know what I mean?
Like specific.
Yeah. And with writing, it's so the range is so big. My friends do journalism, and I do personal writing, personal essays. So mine doesn't seem as serious as what they were doing, because they're meeting presidents and stuff. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's writing, and I don't do that. So and I also am not brave enough to do fictions yet. I guess to me, when you're a writer or like a fiction writer, like when you're making a fiction story, that's when you become a writer. It doesn't have to be that way for sure, but that's how I just kind of see it at first. But writing has been something that comes the easiest to me, and I don't care if it's good or bad.
Okay.
You know, it just makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And now I'm on my second book.
Is that how you got the confidence to publish it? Because you just want to let it out without having any judgment?
I think, yeah. And if there is judgment, I wouldn't necessarily... I do put things into consideration for sure, but I write for myself. So as much as praise or criticism that I got from the book, nobody will ever know how I gone through this and write about it, you know? So there's always that pull to hold on to. But I do appreciate some good criticism here and there, you know? Speaking
of judgment, do you have haters?
Haters?
And how do you deal with them? Do you have like people on social media or your readers who are like...
I think people are never mean to me personally, but they get like, they become this like pseudo analysis of like public feelings, right? I wrote that book, the first book, it's about me crying in public in a place where nobody knew who I was, so I couldn't just cry whenever I want. But then people took it as if public apostrophe S feelings. So the book is seen as kind of irrelevant or untouchable because I didn't talk about what people are going to eat the next day. Like, I didn't talk about the hardships of fellow men, and which I understand. Like, I recognize my privilege. Being in New York alone was already a privilege, but again, they don't know, like, I work 2 jobs to make that happen. But I'm okay with it, and so they don't understand it per se, and just kind of took this title and ran with it. And it's interesting to see where people are at instead of turning it into me, I guess. So it's not really personal. It's just he expected something and he didn't get out of my book. That's the thing, yeah.
So that's, by thinking this way, you kind of don't take it in.
Yeah, I was a little bit like, when I first read it, because did I really do this? Did I really do this? Because he was like listing a bunch of things like hedonistic style, whatever. Like, did I write Gossip Girl? Like, that's where I went to. And then my friend like also like, yeah, but like, you were in New York and not a lot of people could go to New York. Oh, yeah, that makes sense too, I guess. But then if I'm gonna talk about class differences, I'm not gonna make a book about it. I'm just gonna do actual work and help. You know?
Yeah. I forgot to ask this, but for your campaign, social media campaigning, you made a video where you showed people that you shaved cut and shaved your head. What does it symbolize, this
I think
transformation?
Change, yeah, like as easy as that. And my friends were like bored and, hey, do you want to make a video? And I was like, oh, could you do my campaign video for my reels, my first ever reels? Reels just hit in Indonesia, kan? And it was like down, and I have a studio with my partner, and we just kind of like put some lighting and just shot it and just have a fun day. It doesn't really signify anything because I wanted to make something that is, I just want to let people know that I'm coming out with a second book, but I don't really want to give it too much away. So the only thing from the book that I put out was just the fonts, but everything in the video actually doesn't have anything to do with the book, aside that saying like, oh yeah, there's a change coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I've asked all my questions, but I want to know what's next for you, and will you be having an event or another exhibition like your first book?
Well, I'm designing the show for Kink.
A show?
Like an exhibition, like an art show for Kink. I don't know what it's about.
I'm having ideas. A show.
I will talk.
That could be so cool. Yeah.
And I'm also writing my 3rd book, but it's kind of too early to tell. I don't know what it is yet, but we're going somewhere. Just taking it day by day, I guess. Yeah.
That's cool. And yeah, like now I would like to go to the audience and see if anyone has a question for Ray.
Oh yes, the pretty lady in front.
So when you talked about what you want to be known for as a writer, you said you want to be an honest writer. And I've heard that before from many authors, but I don't really know what it means. Like, so what does that mean to be an honest writer, and or what does it mean to not be an honest writer?
What does it mean? I don't know.
What does it mean?
I feel like, well, if I'm being honest in my writings, people wouldn't know anyway. So when I say I want to be an honest writer, I want to be honest to myself and write things that are true to me. And hopefully it'll translate, and then tell people if I could do it, they can do it too. Again, not necessarily becoming a writer, but just be honest with what you do and have some conviction and passion and love for what you do. But as far as I can say, I can't really convince people if I'm being honest or not, and I just hope that it shows, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
Does this sort of give you more satisfaction?
In the long run, yes. Sometimes when you are being honest, it feels like crap too. It's not always pretty, but then in the long run, you stand by what you do. You know, you stand by what books that you've written, and you go to grave with your works. That's what I believe in, and I don't want to publish things that doesn't seem relevant to me or honest to me, even though I will grow out of it, I will change, and I will have more different truths in my life. Yeah, but looking back, I was always, like in the first book, I was ready to hate it after I put it out because that's what people do. They hate whatever works they did before, but to this day, thank God I didn't hate it. I read it, like I laugh a little bit, like have like a little sense of humor about myself, and oh yeah, I enjoy it for what it is, and oh, I'm not this person anymore, that's good, you know, like, but yeah, I always have some respect for that past, I guess. Yeah, because my favorite, like what happens if your favorite singers or bands of all time hated the stuff that they did 10, 20 years ago, but that's like the best album that you ever think of what they made, you know, and then they don't want to perform it anymore. It's sad too, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you go to the grave with your work, and I wanted to go to the grave happily, I guess.
I love that. I love that you don't take yourself too seriously with your work.
Yeah, because it's also, you know, I don't want to be like correcting the past all the time. You know, okay, if the thing that I did last time wasn't great, I'll make a new one, a better one. You know, just go to the next one. You know, there's always that instead of nitpicking old stuff that you can't really change.
And questions. We have questions. Who from? I don't know, but okay. The first question: have you ever reread your book and it feels different from when you wrote it?
Every time. It's with Public Feelings. Yes, I didn't read that book until I think a year later, because I was too much in it, and I was more excited about hearing what other people had to say about it. Not for validation or anything. It's just fun because it's for sure different than what I intended out to be. So it's a new story, and then I like to pretend like, oh, you wrote this because you mean this. I'm just like, yeah, and I'll let them make me seem smarter. You know, I'm just like, true, yes, that could go as well.
Yeah.
But with this one, I haven't really read it until just now, for the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, because again, I was in it too much, so I needed time to process it, to kind of get out of it a little bit and then check back in, I guess. Yeah.
I think that's an important process in like anything that you do, to like get out, take a step back and just pause until you go back into it.
Yeah. But it means differently, for sure. Kink changes a lot for me. I intended it to be a pop poetry book, but make it like sexy. Let's call it Kink, you know? But it didn't kind of end up being anything like that, and me writing it was, I was having so much fun writing it, and then editing it was a bit horrible, because then it really shows how sad I was when I was writing it. And then when I put it out again, I felt a little bit more sadder. Like I was asking, like, who did I write this for? Me, obviously, but also why did I put it out? But then like my friends and some people messaged me about what they like about the book or how it resonated with them, and that kind of, oh, okay, this is probably why. I mean, people are enjoying this, I guess.
Yeah, and since you didn't have like a structure for this work, unlike your first one, how did you know that your work was complete? Like, when were you like, okay, I'm done, I'm happy with it, let's publish it?
So this book what's funny is some of the poetries in the book, like the last verse or stanza, probably has nothing to do with the poetry, but it connects you to the book. Because with this one, I kind of want to do a little bit of a universe building. So there is a way, and I arrange all the titles or the script, the book, like from start to finish, and I think I made a deadline for myself to okay, this is when I stop it. But then on that day, I ended up hashing out 8 more poetries that I worked on, because I was moving things around and I was cutting things, and this has 2 endings, 2 closures, so I have to cut this and put this somewhere else. But then that ended up being a standalone body of work that I hash out. So it was that day was actually one of the more funner days when I was working on it, because I was again figuring things out. Oh, I'm writing about this now. It was pleasantly nice, you know, like surprising.
Well, for the second question, I can answer it for you.
Okay.
Do you have any future plans in writing more books? Because I know you're writing your third book, so yes. And the last question, if you do have a plan to write more books in the future, what issues or topics will you like to cover? Maybe you can tell us a little bit.
Well, it's gonna be another poetry book. I realized I didn't resolve anything in Kink, per se. So it's, I think it's gonna be the sister book to Kink, but it has its own, I don't know what it's about yet. I have some pieces and an idea where I'm going with this, but it's too soon to tell. Because this didn't end up like what I planned it out to be.
Okay.
So I'm for sure think the next one will also be unexpected.
So do you think you've resolved something from your first one?
The first book?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to find the
I have to like
resolution.
put a closure to this, I guess. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, any more questions from the audience? Or just if you want to acknowledge Ray. Read more.
Read more? Pick
Read
a number.
something. Pick a number.
1 to 57.
5.
5 is tropical L. Well, that one has a curse word, so I'm gonna read the next one. 7, I'm not with you. Oh yeah, this is
Yeah,
a
you
fun
can't
one.
curse when my mom's around. She's very sensitive.
It's called I Melt With You. You say love is the death of duty. I beg to differ, I beg to differ. You say the past is a sweeter place to be. Cry me a river, cry me a river. I melt with you, sharing the devil put aside for thee. I melt with you, dissolving faiths into tragedy. Nothing else to do, standing on the edge of space oddity. I melt with you and all of you until no one can tell that once there were two. So that's one.
Well, yeah, so I guess thank you so much for
Thank you
being
so much
here.
for having me.
And thank you for the book. I really enjoyed it. And
Thank you for reading it.
yeah. Sorry? There's a book signing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
If you have a
Well,
copy.
I want you to sign my book.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And thank you, Ray.
Thank you
and
so
thank
much.
you everyone who came and listened to our chat. And yeah, I would just like to end by saying thank you for supporting the Yayasan Mudraswari Saraswati's Patrons program and to the festival's partner who made the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival possible. Follow at Ubud Writers Festival on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or visit ubudwritersfestival.com for more information about the program. Let's give a round of applause to Ray again.
Thank you. And for Lakshmi too. She did an
Oh,
amazing
thank you.
job.
Thank you. So
Thank
we'll